Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest from Carnation, Where Death Lies, out September 18th on Season of Mist. This album has 9 tracks, 41 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. You could totally feel the old school influences that this band has, but having said that, this is not just an old school death metal album. They definitely dip their toes in the more modern approach to death metal, and that is present across this album on many different fronts. One of the main components of this record is definitely the structure of the album. That is perhaps one of the more old school elements of the record. I was not expecting this album to be a roller coaster ride. I was not expecting them to pivot halfway through the record. I was not expecting them to create songs and introduce them in the middle of the album that completely broke the dynamic of the record or gave the listener a sense of pause and a sense of coming up for air. This is an album that is built on brutality, and you need to have that consistency from top to bottom, which is exactly what they did. Perhaps if they had thrown an instrumental track, I was kind of thinking of something along those lines that could easily swing into the middle of the album to break the album into side A and side B. But then the more I started thinking about it, the more I felt that doing something like that, it would have been expected. So by going with a more traditional approach, with going with a more balanced approach as far as structure and then sound is concerned, I feel like they have more of a winning formula here, allowing the album to stay heavy, to stay brutal, to stay intense and aggressive from the beginning to the end with absolutely zero pivots throughout the record. Now, once you get into the sound, this album really surprised me on how well balanced the sound is, or better yet, how better intertwined the sound is as far as guitars and drums are concerned. I want to start off with the drums because the drums on this album are absolutely destructive, brutal. I love the heaviness that they have. I love the mood swings that they carry within the songs, moving from more a heavier, brutal, absolutely destructive pace to a more calmer, melancholic, melodic pace. I love the swings that we get out of the drums. I love how they sound, but perhaps more important, how they interact with the other element, the guitars. This is an album that doesn't break these two into two separate lanes. It doesn't segregate them. It doesn't divide them. I really felt that the guitar sound and the drum sound is very well mixed all the way through on every single song. There's not one element staying within its path and the other one staying within this path, and then you put them together and it's kind of like a sandwich or a lasagna as far as layers of sound are concerned. I really felt that these two elements were just cross-pathing all the time on every single song. This allows for the overall feel and the overall soundscape of the record to be a lot more robust, to be a lot more meaty, but not necessarily grimy, because you're not just getting heaviness and you're not just getting presence and tempo and melody out of one element. In this case could easily been the guitars. No, you're getting those same elements out of both drums and guitars and bass when you put everything into the mix. Just really well crafted record that you can't really tell where one has more of a predominant role or the other one has a predominant role. All of them have a predominant role. This is a record that really works by the overall sound that it creates, by how heavy, by how brutal, how present it is, and therefore allows the overall volume on the record to be a lot higher and have a more of a ground and pound presence across all and every single element, and therefore on all and every single song on this album. I like it, and that to me is a little bit more of a modern touch, a little bit more of a modern approach. This album from that perspective didn't have that break up feel that you get with the more classic old school death metal albums, and it works well for this band, and overall I really feel like it represents that sound a lot better. It just makes it feel like it fills in everything around it. It just has a lot more strength. Even songs that are not necessarily as heavy still feel very heavy and very brutal, because the absolute massive amount of sound coming at you from drums, guitars, and bass all combining efforts together is very potent. Now, as far as vocals are concerned, I was a little bit surprised that they included some different approaches. Not many and not very often, but you got some clean vocals, you got some screaming vocals outside of the harsh vocal norm that's pretty much 98% of the vocals on this album. That surprised me. Now, having said that, it was not necessarily a negative because they didn't overuse it throughout the album. If you have a record that is this consistent in the sound approach, which is pretty much what you get at the first track, is exactly what you're going to get all the way through to the last track. If you have an album that is this concise, this cohesive from a structural approach, you need to have the same similar approach as far as vocals are concerned. Otherwise, it really feels like you have two elements moving in one direction and the other one moving the complete opposite direction. And for an album that has this style, that has this overall feel to it, for a death metal album that really dips into the past but still represents the present, you need to be consistent across all elements. And this record is very consistent across all elements, with the vocals, like I said, changing on a few tracks, adding some clean vocals, some screaming vocals, but not too much. And that not too much, like I said before, is really the winning formula, because it didn't diversify the vocal approach that much and that often. You're still going to get 98% harsh vocals that really create an impact, that are pretty much the gift wrapping of everything that's coming at you musically. The vocals really represent that approach well, because they're very heavy, they're very powerful, they're very aggressive, so they really represent the sound well. And then you throw in a few clean vocals here and there and a few screaming vocals just to change the dynamic of those specific songs. Otherwise, within those tracks themselves, it would perhaps be a little bit repetitive in how the songs were created. So they thought a little bit outside the box, but not too far outside the box, and create an album that would completely destroy the DNA of the band and what they're trying to achieve with their sound. Overall, great record, strong album, top to bottom, no filler tracks. There are no skippable songs. This is just a very compact record, 9 incredibly heavy and brutal songs, and an amazing death metal album for the fans of the genre. Now, as far as songs are concerned, I will start off with Spirit, Excision, and this song has great drums. They really create the perfect backbone and the heaviness that the song really needs in order to flourish, in order to move forward. It allows the guitars to be slightly more melodic, at least create some melodic undertones to it that improves the overall feel and soundscape of the track. The vocal duality is present on this song. You get the brutal, harsh vocals. Like I said, 98% of the vocals on the album are like that, and you get some screaming vocals. This gives the song a little bit of a dynamic mechanism that really allows it to change and transform itself as it's moving along. Because from a musical perspective, this song is very linear, is very compact. There's not a lot of changes coming at you. So by slightly changing the vocal approaches, it really creates something to change the record, to change how the song sounds, and to give the important dynamic attributes that this track needs in order for the listener to feel like you're getting engaged with the track, that things are moving along and it's not just spinning its wheels. I love how powerful it is. I love the solo on this track has a little bit of an old school approach to it, very melodic, really pulling from those more melodic undertones that the track has, but not just adding melody, but also adding a lot of darkness. And that's something that they did a lot on the guitar solos on this album, is infuse a little bit of darkness into that melody in order for the mood of the track to come down when it feels like it's brightening up with the solos. So I love that idea, and I love that way of delivering that specific portion of the song, and specifically on this track I really enjoy the solo. But overall, this is a song that's very well put together, and it really has a lot of heavy moments and alternating some melody in and out in order to create a very well balanced song musically and vocally. Next is Malformed Regrowth. I love this song, faster tempo. It's definitely a song that imposes a little bit more strength, more intensity, more aggression, just right off the bat, the way it starts. It's heavy from beginning all the way to end, and the intensity also never really drops from the beginning all the way to the end. A song that just feels like it's coming at you violently, fast, heavy, brutal, no holds bar kind of a track that has a lot of impetus to it. And I love that in the sound of the track, and I love how the song is constructed that way. The drums and guitars really work well together to give the song that feel, that robust sound feel that's coming at you in a violent manner at all times. When the drums drop out a little bit, the guitars become heavier. When the guitars drop out a little bit, the drums become heavier. At times, both of them become very heavy and brutal at the same time. I just love the overall construction of the track. I just love how it comes at you, and it's another song that has a great guitar solo, really adding, once again, a little bit of darkness to the song, because the melody that it carries is a very dark toned styled melody. And I love that because it doesn't change the overall dynamic of the track. It doesn't take anything away from the brutality of the track, and it definitely doesn't take anything away from the heaviness that the track has. Last but not least, Reincarnation. This is my favorite song on the album. And the more I think about it, is perhaps because I'm a huge fan of melodic death metal. And when I look at this album, this is perhaps the song that goes a little bit more towards outside of that box. It has a little bit more of that melodic death metal undertones to it, specifically in the verses. The verses carry itself all the way to the chorus, and then the melody explodes in the chorus. But the verses play an important role. While the verses are perhaps the heavier, the more traditional sounding element of the track that has the more robust, the more pure death metal sound, you start to feel the roots of that melodic side of the song really growing in the verses, and then like a plant or like a flower completely flourish once you get to the chorus. So the chorus in the forefront really feels like the most melodic portion of the song, and it is, but those roots are in the way the verses are put together. You can see that dynamic mechanism really starts through the verses, and then it absolutely flourishes with the chorus. I love this track, and like I said, the reason why I think that I really fell in love with this track is that more melodic death metal undertone that the song has. I love the guitar melodies, I love how heavy the drums are, but still a very melodic song that really finds a way of intertwining that melody, adding a little bit of melancholy to the way the melody sounds, and creating the perfect soundscape for this song. The vocals also on point throughout this track. Definitely, for me, the best song in the album. This is it, guys. This is Carnation, Where Death Lies, out September 18th on Season of Mist. Let me know your thoughts on the band, the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.